If you think only dramatic things happen in a lab, you're so wrong. A research team accidentally breaks into a factory with the aim of stealing Biojohn's tech, just to make a quick buck. Once the equipment's running, they huddle, tense, debating who's the guinea pig, like awkward dating. Nobody wants to be the first test subject, and just then, a figure breaks their stalemate. It's Lanny spotting some strangers wandering about in the factory. She instantly becomes alert, questioning who they are. Under Lanny's sudden attack, Chris quickly makes up a story. He claims they are the factory manager's friends, and although Lanny pauses, she sees how lax the management is and brushes it off as part-time help. After finishing her water duties, she prepares to leave, but White pulls her, asking about quick cash. This gig was super simple. Just sit down for a photo, easy peasy, no stress at all. Little did Lanny know, this harmless photo contract might sneakily change her destiny. She asks how much they're willing to pay. They casually throw out 1,000 rupees, but Lanny's response leaves everyone dumbfounded. She boldly demands 300,000 rupees, leaving everyone exchanging shocked glances, hardly believing their ears. This seemingly fearless woman is bossy enough to ask for that price, and before Y could object, Chris surprisingly agrees to her outrage. He points out that they can only pay half now, and she'll get the rest after the photo. Y and the chunky guy think she's lost her marbles. Chris stops hiding the truth, stating that if the machine sells, they'd be willing to drop a whopping 21 billion rupees. People's calculators are already going wild. Compared to that, 300,000 is nothing. They all agree and collect 150,000 rupees in 3 days for Lanny. However, Lanny firmly rejects installments, insisting on full payment before cooperating. The buyer hands her the gold chain. She gives it a quick rub with the key to confirm it's legit before happily heading off for a photo shoot. She plops down in the back seat of the device as the staff reminds her that she might feel a bit uneasy, especially in the head area. But before they power up, the chunky guy pulls Chris and Y aside, saying there's an error they need to fix pronto. They feel they might drift off target by about a kilometer. Oh boy. Even with that, Chris decides to go ahead, smacks the start button, and the chunky guy feels his heart rate spike. Lanny suddenly vanishes, and when she opens her eyes, she finds herself outside the factory, the surroundings strangely familiar as if from one moment she's on the device and in a blink she's here. Buzzing in her ears, she feels a wave of dizziness hit her. The gold chain around her neck reminds her that everything just happened was real, swimming in questions. She wants to go back to find the team for answers, but freezes at the next corner. She unexpectedly spots another version of herself. Seeing her approach, Lanny quickly ducks out of sight. She silently follows her doppelganger into the factory, wondering what's happening. The next scene leaves her stunned. Everything she witnesses plays out as if she just watched a rerun. She suddenly sees her double in the back seat, poised to vanish, while the team looks exhilarated. Unbelievably shocked, Lanny opts to flee this unsettling place ASAP. She turns to head straight for her car, but upon climbing in, discovers her husband is already dead. She suspects the experiment team's big sister may have caused her husband's demise after all. Why would he just drop dead out on nowhere? So, she heads back to the factory and confronts the chunky guy who stepped outside, determined to find out what's going on. Facing Lanny's fury, the chunky guy urges her to chill out, then fesses up that the machine she sat in is actually a time machine. The device successfully sends her back 15 minutes, but the current moment is no longer part of her original reality. In another timeline, there's another Lanny and Addie confused. Lanny demands the chunky guy suggest a fix. How can everything go back to normal and return to her true world? The chunky guy gives her one and only solution: get back on the time machine. If all goes well, she might revert back to the correct timeline, avoiding a tragic rerun. Before starting the experiment, the chunky guy reminds her of question, fainting again. 2 minutes later, Lanny walks back into the factory, with Chris and Y staring at her in astonishment. Y rushes over to check on her, asking if she's hurt and what happened earlier. To avoid raising suspicion, Lanny pretends, based on the chunky guy's advice, that she just fainted again. She asks to try the experiment again, and as the three discuss, Y raises his doubts. He believes the Lanny before them isn't the test subject from just now, but a version from the past. She's supposed to return to the past, not create another version of herself, and Chris is skeptical about this. The chunky guy quickly points out that Lanny told her she saw another version of herself, proving time rift indeed occurred. They must act fast to send Lanny back to her original timeline, while also deciding to adjust the experiment parameters for longer duration. To allow Lanny to return to a sufficiently distant point in time, avoiding re-entry into the current time, the chunky guy calculates that the previous time jump wasn't much longer, but if they want Lanny to go further back, they'll have to adjust the parameters. However, she warns that increasing the time span means the target coordinates could drift more, upping the risk of the experiment. Y proposes extending the duration to several hours for successful experimentation, but Chris vehemently rejects the idea.